You can't do this. I won't let you.
Show your move. Good news, everyone. Don't you little giddy when you see onions have legs.
Welcome to 20th Century Boy. My name is Final Mikey Nation. And this is the inside of my mind. Welcome to the season finale for season 4 of 20th Century Boy. This is the last episode for the year. Final Mikey Nation, of course, is a reference to that and the film, the horror film franchise Final Destination, which is decent. Not sure if anyone's a huge fan of it, but I think I've seen the first one and like the fourth one, and it's just I don't know why I'm talking about this. Welcome to 20th Century Boy for the last time this year. This podcast is the conversations you wish you were having about the stuff that nobody else cares about. Tackling all kinds of crazy topics in pop culture world and mic culture world, i.e. my life, because especially this year we've done some pretty crazy things on this show. And welcome all of you. Crazy to be at the end of the 4th year of the show. Now the last episode of the year usually is more of a chill episode, just more of a reflection episode, and not as many angry rants as a lot of the show is nowadays. But yeah, just looking back, I've had a really long week. You can find out a bit more about that over on my Instagram or in the podcast Discord. It's been a busy week and a difficult week for me, so it's going to be more of a light casual pod, but I still have a bunch of stuff I'd like to talk about. But yeah, I guess the first thing I wanted to say is a huge thank you to everyone for your support in 2022. It's been awesome. It's been the biggest year of the show. It's been the biggest year for me, Mike, as a creator, and it's been absolutely amazing having all of you guys and the show growing. So if you're new to the show in 2022, if you're old to the show in 2022, regardless, welcome and thank you, and can't wait to be back for season 5 in 2023. And I'll outline a bit more of the next few weeks and the schedule and everything a little bit later. I did want to quickly do, we don't usually do this at the start, but let's just start with this. The plug. Because in biggest news of this show's history and biggest news for me as an individual, I would like to plug something really exciting that I'm doing in 2023. On February 4th, 2023, here in Melbourne at the Coopers Inn at 7:30 p.m, I will be doing my first ever live podcast. It will be a live recording of Harry Potter and the Boys, a fan fiction podcast that I do. I'm sure many of you here listen to it. It's my first ever live show. And 4 years ago when I started this podcast, I never, ever could have imagined doing a live show. Genuinely cannot believe it, because for a lot of my life, there was this anxiety there of doing anything in front of a crowd. And somehow I'm just sort of over it now. I'm like, yeah, I want to do this live show. The tickets went on sale today, Tuesday the 18th, 19th, 20th of December at time of recording. We've already sold a bunch, so get in, radiomac.com.au/tickets. Even if you don't listen to Harry Potter and the Boys, I think it'll be a great night. Special guest Sam Garlep will be there. We have an absolute blast recording the pod, so we can't wait to do it live. It's going to be a heap of fun. Sam's really excited as well. And I'll meet you all. So if you want to meet me, just come to the show. It's as cheap as I could possibly make it. It's about $20 a ticket, and I would absolutely love to see you there. This is the biggest undertaking for Radio Mike Productions and that I've ever done, and I'm really excited to do it. A lot of people have already bought tickets, so I would love to see you there. Meet me, grab a photo, I'll sign whatever, and just have a laugh, have a good night. It'll be a Saturday night, so it'll be a lot of fun, and yeah, really excited for that. So just wanted to plug at the top, radiomike.com.au/tickets, or just in the link in the description of this podcast, there'll be a link, or just go to my Instagram, you will find it. Please come along. If you like 20th Century Boy, I'm sure you'll like the humor of Harry Potter and the Boys, and I would absolutely love to see you there. 2022 has been a big year for many reasons, personal and career-wise, and last year or the year before, I did this little bit on what I learned in that year to wrap up the year. And I just wanted to do a little bit of a roundup of some of my key learnings of the year, because this podcast is as much for me as it is about you. You know, this podcast is very therapeutic for me, and it's like a one-way conversation. You can contribute, but not live, obviously, because it's a podcast. So radiomikepod@gmail.com, any of my socials, chuck me a follow. That's how you get in touch with the show. Or, of course, let's do this one more time for the year, the podcast hotline.
If you've got a contribution to the podcast, there's only one number you see. Go 1-800-438-353.
That's something I want to get back going in the new year. The hotline has been severely lacking in 2022. I would love more hotline. Leave a voicemail or just send me a voice message on Instagram. Hey, Mike, was listening to the podcast, heard you say this was interesting. What do you think of this? Just helps me build the show each week. I'd really love to feature your voices more. So if you can't voice message in, just write in. Again, any of the socials. But 2022, a lot of learnings here. And I think we're in this time where, you know, we've not wrapped up COVID, but that period of our lives that we look back on, which was so uncertain and just crazy generally. And 2022 is the first year here in Melbourne, at least, where we've been free, in inverted commas, for the whole year. We haven't been locked down at all. A few years ago, I talked on the pod about how a really important catch up I had a few years ago with Hamish Blake. Great dude. I'm sure you know him. We got breakfast in Richmond long time ago. And I was telling him about how I basically felt stuck. It might have been the second year of the pod, and I felt like I had something to offer, but I was always riddled by this anxiety of not knowing, not feeling confident, fearing judgment from others and judgment of others, people, you know, attacking me and whatever. And it was stopping me from just putting myself out there. It was stopping me from making decisions about what I wanted and what I wanted to do. And he showed me this quote from Theodore Roosevelt, The Man in the Arena. I now have it printed and framed in my apartment. I'm just looking at it up here. And the conceit of that quote is that the man in the arena, like, you're, as a creator, you're in the arena. Like, think of a coliseum with a gladiator in the middle, right? Fighting lions or whatever the hell they used to do. And outside the arena, on the you know, the seats, there's thousands of people outside the arena throwing stones, throwing stuff at him, yelling at him, telling the gladiator what to do, telling everybody what they should do, telling him what he's doing wrong, telling him what's good, what's bad, blah, 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 blah. And it's all noise. And at the end of the day, you're the man in the arena. None of them are in the arena. Only you're in the arena. And that's what it is. And that's kind of what he told me. And it took me I think you understand it, but it took me a while to start living it. And I think in 2022, it was the first year that I really felt like I lived that. I just decided in 2022 to stop, to second guess the voice in my mind that's like, don't do that because people will judge you. I just started posting more content. I started being more public about the shows I was doing and the content I was making and not caring what other people thought, just being like, I'm putting this out there because I want to do it. And it changed so much. It's helped grow the podcast in like a listenership way, in an awareness way, but it's also just helped grow me as a person. I feel so much more confident. Again, coming back to that point of now I feel like I can do a live show and I don't have to be worried about that. All of that stuff. And I think that was a really important learning moment for me. It's taken me maybe 2 years to, like, I understood the man in the arena, but now I feel like I live it more. And now I just don't care. I get abusive messages on TikTok all the time and I just don't care. Like now, if someone says something mean to me in a comment, I just block them. I'm like, okay, I'm blocking you. I don't care. Whereas in the past, I feel like I would have dwelled on it for weeks and hated myself for it. And I would learn from that, and it would prevent me from doing something like that again. So living that ethos in 2022 is something I want to continue in 2023. It's why I'm doing the live show. That's why I'm trying new creative stuff in 2023. I really want to try some stand-up. The other key learning I had in 2022, which has served me well, I think, is that, and I've said it a bit before, but I think what I've learned is that no matter what you think, you cannot make people think and behave the way you want them to. You can't. And there are so many people I see online now who, it really frustrates me a bit because they have these exceptionally strong opinions about certain social issues, which is great. But anyone who even somewhat disagrees with them, they throw stones at, and they publicly berate and mock. And I think a lot of these people claim that they're super progressive and tolerant, and that's what they do. They tolerate people, but they're not. They're like, a lot of these people to me are bullies and harassers, and they attack people. And I think what I've learned in 2022 is that everybody has different opinions and different thoughts and different beliefs. And even if you don't agree with them, you have to, you can't attack people and hurt people, because you can't start from the premise that you're right. Because sometimes I think as right as I think I am, this person thinks they're as right as me. And from there, once you start thinking that, then you can start to understand why people have different opinions to you that you don't agree with, but you can't force them to change. And it's also not your responsibility to change other people's opinions. That's what I've realized as well in 2022. It's not my responsibility to change what other people think, how they feel, how they behave. I can only be responsible for me. I'm not responsible for anybody else. And key learning that's really, really helped me. Like, suddenly when you're like, I can't control other people and it's not my responsibility to, suddenly it lifts a huge weight off your shoulder, because suddenly you just don't have to be this person kind of telling everyone else how to think and how to feel, which I felt for a while that I had to be this person that if anyone had a different opinion to me than was wrong, I had to convince them that they were wrong and make them feel they were wrong. And now I'm just like, nah, not my job. Takes a huge weight off your shoulder. I think that was my key learning for this year that I'll take into next year. Anyway, I just wanted to start the pod with that. Little bit of wisdom from Uncle Mikey. I shouldn't call myself Uncle Mikey on this pod, but there you go. I just did. Look, I know what most of you are probably thinking. And yes, I'm going to talk about it. Let's do this.
Gumball-a-rama, it's been full of drama, but we're getting there at the end of the year.
Gumball-a-rama, one of the longest running arcs on this show, but it's not really an arc, it's just an empty promise. I pledged many years ago to empty a gumball machine. You know, just bring enough coins that you could empty an entire gumball machine. And I finally brought it back and said, we're doing it at the end of this year. Well, I would like to officially announce that Gumball-a-rama 2022 was cancelled. Because, as you heard on last week's episode, we did anticipate 20 cents per gumball. That's how much it was 20 years ago when I was a kid. Now, it's $1 a gumball. I was budgeting $100. We're probably going to need $500. That's too much. So, maybe in 2023, we will get a sponsor on, hopefully, to pay for it, or we'll just try and raise money. But yeah, Gumball-a-rama 2022 is cancelled. Huge apologies for the letdown at the end of the year. I know you guys were probably very, very excited about it. So was I. But then producer Pat, went to Southern Cross Station here in Melbourne last week and checked. It was $1. However, our only saving grace, which could work for early next year, Producer Pat does believe there is a 20-cent gumball machine located in Geelong. So, next year, if there is, he's going to verify it. If there is, we will go to Geelong. In 2023, we will go to Geelong and we will use the 20-cent gumball machine there. If not, we're going to have to save up $500 somehow. Jump on the Patreon, patreon.com/Radio Mike. Give some money for the gumballs, guys. $1 per gumball, apparently. Bloody inflation. Okay. There are 2 news stories I want to discuss for the final ep. It might be a bit of a shorter episode this week because I have a bunch of stuff I need to do before Thursday when you're hearing this on a personal note. So apologies for that. And apologies if my tone is a bit under this week. It has been a really big week. Jump on my Insta or Discord to hear about that. The first news that I wanted to talk about, which really, really shocked me, and I think most people who listen to this podcast will relate to this and have experience with this thing, and I think you'll be shocked if you haven't heard it. This week, it was announced, and I think it's such perfect timing that this happened before the last episode of the podcast. This week, it was announced that Ash Ketchum will be leaving the Pokemon TV show alongside Pikachu.
Yes, I am Ash.
Ash Ketchum is a boy from Pallet Town.
And now that I'm 10, I can finally get my Pokemon license.
10-year-olds can get a beginner Pokemon from Professor Oak, the town's Pokemon expert.
I will journey to gain the wisdom of Pokemon training. And I hereby declare to the Pokemon of the world, I will be a Pokemon master.
Wow, even just hearing that voice acting there, I feel super nostalgic. Because I guess, and if you haven't ever seen the Pokemon TV show, I mean, I assume none of us watch it anymore. I haven't watched that show since I was a kid. I mean, maybe I've caught episodes on TV like every once in a while that I'll just watch. But Ash Ketchum is sort of, I feel like, such an iconic character, not only in anime and like Japanese exports to the West, but also just in millennial and 90s culture in general. I think as a character, he's just such a iconic anime dude who just represented every kind of kid from the 90s. And, you know, the clip I just played you there was from the first ever episode of Pokemon, the anime, Pokemon I Choose You. Would have aired maybe in the late 90s. And I guess as a kid at that time, it was the right time for a lot of kids. Like, we were 4 or 5 years old and this Pokemon thing started and it became a worldwide phenomenon. You know, it was a video game, then they turned it into an anime to help sell the games, then they turned it into trading cards and other, you know, spin-off games and movies and everything you could possibly get. The most profitable franchise in the world, for good reason. And I think the weirdest part for me, there's a lot of aspects to this, sentimental, commercial, you know, social. It's very interesting to me. Because for me, Ash Ketchum is, like, it's been 22 years, I think, that this character has been on our screen. And there's this long-running kind of joke or meme that Ash Ketchum is the boy that never grew up. You know, he's been 10 years old for 25 years on TV, and it just, like, it doesn't even really make sense in the logic of the show because other characters kind of grow up and age up a little bit, but he's always 10 years old. All of his other friends go off and get jobs and do actual stuff, but Ash Ketchum is always 10 years old. He's got his Pikachu. He goes to whenever a new game comes out in Pokemon, he goes to that game's, like, region and goes and catches all the new Pokemon. Starts from scratch. But, you know, the other thing is his Pikachu is extremely strong, and, you know, Pokemon grow levels in the Pokemon games, and Ash's Pikachu has done so many battles, he must be level 100, but then at the start of a new season, Ash will go to the new region, battle, like, a caterpillar Pokemon, and it'll beat his Pikachu somehow, even though his Pikachu is level 100. I'm really shocked by this decision. So they've announced that the next season of the anime, Ash will be retired finally, and so will Pikachu. Ash and his Pikachu will be retired. And this really shocks me because I just think those characters are so iconic. So from a business and marketing standpoint, I find it such an interesting and risky choice because you don't know that these new characters they're bringing in are going to resonate with kids as much as Ash Ketchum did. That being said, they probably will. Any character will because it's more about the Pokemon. But I guess as an icon of that franchise and of anime in the West in general, it just does feel like a really big decision. But not just Ash Ketchum, because I think Ash is a very iconic character. Again, very representative of that millennial 90s boy. And to be fair, the new characters, there's 2 new main characters they're going to bring in. And one is a boy, one is a girl, right? I guess trying to, again, when Pokemon first came out, I think gaming and all of these things were very much about boys, right? Even to the point that like the Game Boy was literally called a Game Boy. That's all part of, those are all marketing decisions. Like they weren't targeting girls. But now I think in 2022, 25 years later, it's a very different landscape for these things. So it's like, yeah, we need a guy and a girl. We need 2 main characters and, we need to try and represent as many people as possible, which I think is a good thing. The main thing that shocks me so much about this is the fact that they will retire Pikachu as well. Because as much as Ash Ketchum is the face of all the children in the world that love Pokemon, Pikachu almost undoubtedly would have to be one of the most iconic fictional characters of all time. Like, I really do believe that in 2022, more children would be able to recognize and name Pikachu than something like Mickey Mouse, which I guess maybe to you doesn't seem necessarily, depends on when you're born. Maybe that seems like a no-brainer. I guess when I was born, Mickey Mouse was a very prominent character. So was like Bugs Bunny, even though they were still very relevant. Now, not so much. But I genuinely think that Pikachu is just one of the most profoundly successful character designs in history. It has everything going for it. It's cute. It can be angry. It can be edgy. It has thunder cheeks. Like, it uses electricity to attack. It can fight, but it's also adorable and cute. Really, really gets every market in. Boys love him because he's aggressive and fights. Girls would love him. I'm generalizing, by the way, but girls love him because he's cute, adorable, has a cute voice. And to me, Pikachu is a goldmine. And he springs up like, he is the mascot of the franchise. He really is the mascot of definitely the anime. Also, a lot of the games, highlight Pikachu a lot. And if there's ever like a Pokemon crossover thing, it's always Pikachu. Pikachu is the Pokemon rep in Super Smash Bros., the original Pokemon rep. He pops up in all kinds of different things, right? And don't even get me started on Pikachu plush dolls, merchandise, like all of this stuff that features Pikachu. So to me, it is super, super interesting that they will retire that character from the show and no longer have Pikachu as the mascot of the show. Because I don't think there are many other Pokemon that could really fill that void. I remember in the first season of the show, I mean, obviously you have like your starter Pokemon that were big, like Bulbasaur, Squirtle, Charmander, in the when I used to watch the TV show years and years ago. And then they also had Jigglypuff. But I just thought Pikachu was such an iconic design. So very interested. I really do think it will still have some kind of presence in that show. And they're actually doing like a farewell season for Ash. They're doing like a mini series where they farewell Ash and he reunites with all these old Pokemon. And like, I even saw like one of the most iconic, for all 90s kids, back me up here, one of the most iconic episodes of the original show was when Ash says goodbye to his Butterfree, who falls in love with another Butterfree, and he cries and they fly off. So sad. Breaks my heart every single time, right? And in this little trailer for the miniseries, they show him reuniting with his Butterfree. And for us, it's 20 years later. But you've got to imagine for him, it must be less than a year later. Because, like, canonically, because he's still 10 years old. That's where it stops making any sense. But I'm going to watch it for sure. Like, I just think it'll be such a interesting way to see how they send off this character. And I do really believe that he will pop up. I think maybe a lot of people are saying that he might be the father of one of the new characters, so he might finally grow up and be in the show. Otherwise, a lot of people just think he'll be a recurring character in the new show, but not the main character. But I don't think they're done with this character for good. He'll always be part of that world. He'll pop up he'll definitely pop up on screen again. And I'd love to think in 20 years' time we get some kind of Luke Skywalker-esque return of Ash Ketchum in the show as well. The same way, Luke Skywalker pops up at the end of Mandalorian. Something like that would be really awesome. But yeah, I think it makes me feel weird in a lot of reasons because, nostalgia aside, well, not nostalgia aside, but just generally speaking with this character, like, I just turned 28. Like, I'm really pushing being young. Like, I'm going to be 30 in a couple of years. I'm getting closer to 29 now. It's been like 2 weeks since my 28th birthday. And, coming to the end of the year and, lots of life changes for me this year as well. I think just seeing this news kind of made me be like, yeah, like, I'm growing up and, like, the world is moving on from the stuff that I was into. And I guess I never really thought, I guess in my mind, even though I don't watch this show and I haven't, there was something comforting about knowing that sometimes I would turn the TV on and they would be playing some episode of Pokemon on, and I'd just see it and be like, cool, I'll sit down and watch this, just for some nostalgia, and that Ash Ketchum would be there. Because every kid wanted to be Ash Ketchum. He was awesome. And yeah, it's just sad. The other thing for me, I think that the thing I never expected would happen but will eventually happen inevitably is like The Simpsons being cancelled. One day they will probably stop making episodes of The Simpsons, and it'll probably be soon if it's happening. And yeah, I think that's something inevitable, but it will still be sad to me when it happens, even though I don't really watch the show. Even though I don't I don't engage with I still engage with The Simpsons, but I don't watch the show too much. It's just comforting for me to know that they still make the show and that it still happens. So I think, yeah, it was weird news for, I think, a lot of millennials who read it were like, oh, that's weird. Like, that's weird. It really is ushering out our childhood a little bit. And I really felt that. So I'm really fascinated to see what comes next. I am genuinely excited for this little farewell miniseries. I'll definitely watch it. I might even talk about it on YouTube or on this pod or something like that. But I would love to know your thoughts as well. Like, because the other thing is, because the show and the games would kind of reset every 2 or 3 years when they put out new games, then the new season of the show starts and it kind of resets. I think every kid kind of got a fresh start with Ash. I just happened to be a kid when the show started. And I'll tell you, like, we loved that show. Me and my brother used to watch Pokemon religiously. It was a really fun show. It was really exciting as a kid. You got to see all these Pokemon and I don't know, you wanted to find out what happened next, all the battles he was doing, all the Pokemon he caught. You were interested in that. It hooked you in. And I think every kid kind of had that with their own generation of Pokemon that they were in. So, yeah, saying goodbye to Ash Ketchum. Big deal. Made me really reflect on my age and that, yeah, my childhood is really a very long time in the past, which is sad, and enjoy it while you can. But I did want to inject some comedy into this because obviously the main sort of meme around Pokemon is, well, there's a few things. One, the original slogan of Pokemon is "Gotta catch 'em all." And many of you will likely, even if you haven't engaged with the show, I'm sure many of you will be familiar with the original Pokemon anime theme song. You know, I want to be the very best, like no one ever was. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all, right? And, you know, that song in itself has become quite a meme in popular culture these days. But Pokemon, the original thing was gotta catch 'em all. And one thing that I find really funny about that is that once they got to the third generation of Pokemon, so there might have been about 400 Pokemon at this point. When they got to that point, this is a true story, they actually dropped the "Gotta Catch 'em all" tagline of the show because they realized that it would just become impossible and unreasonable for anyone to catch them all, especially Ash Ketchum in the show. So they actually dropped the "Gotta Catch 'em all" tagline because they knew if they were just going to keep going at this trajectory, which they did, there's now over 1,000 Pokemon. They knew if they kept going, it would just be impossible for Ash to catch them all in the show. So they just dropped it. And I don't think the "Gotta Catch 'em all" phrase is still the tagline. I don't think they use it anywhere in marketing. It's just become such an iconic line. I think maybe when Pokemon Go came out, because so much of that game was about just catching all the Pokemon, maybe they brought it back for that, and because that was such a nostalgic game. But yeah, they had to get rid of it. But I thought it was really funny because, you know, imagine Ash Ketchum starts out, there's only 151 Pokemon. And then he's catching a few, he's getting a good collection going. And then next up, now there's 251. And then, a few years later, now there's 400. And a few years later, now there's 600. Now there's 800. Now there's 1,000. Kid can't possibly catch a break. There's no way he can catch them all. He'll never get there, even though it's his mission. And so now that they're retiring Ash, I think Ash has actually put out a statement through song about his experience trying to catch them all.
I wanted to be the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them was my real test, but now I'll have to pause. Because I travelled across the lands, searching far and wide. But when I learned there's over 1,000 of them, I just broke down and cried. Pokemon, I couldn't catch them all. My friends all abandoned me. Pokemon, oh, I have no friends. I've been 10 for 20 years. Pokemon, oh, this can't be true. I should be like 32. I can't do this anymore. Time to grow up. I couldn't catch 'em all. I couldn't catch 'em all.
Poor Ash Ketchum. R.I.P. Ash Ketchum. Well, he's not dead, but thank you for some very nostalgic memories of my childhood. That's a very great character, a very great boy/man. Okay. I've actually got two more things. First and foremost, I actually just saw this on Twitter, and it just made me, I don't know, it didn't make me angry. I just feel like this is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen on the news. Just take a listen to this.
Santa has come under fire for his weight, with health experts arguing the jolly old man is setting a bad example. But calls for his unhealthy helpers to be replaced in shopping centres have been slammed. Maggie Rayworth explains.
It's a busy time of year. Spare a thought, though, for Frumpy Father Christmas. Working round the clock means no time for a jog. Santa Claus is being fat-shamed.
Overweight, overindulgence, being obese is not necessarily the message that we want to impart on our kids.
Okay, there's just so much, I almost can't, it feels like satire to me. I think, first of all, I I just wanted to, if you've got children listening right now, maybe turn it off. I just wanted to remind everyone that Santa is a fictional character. Spoilers. But like, why is this just like a fluff news story, or is this legit? Because the idea that Santa being overweight is sending a bad message to children is actually, like, hate the word, but it's super problematic in many ways, because it's implying that, like, any overweight person, you know, we shouldn't be encouraging it and et cetera, like that we should be judging them. And they actually are saying we shouldn't hire overweight old men to play a shopping center Santa because it's setting a bad example for kids, which is a ludicrous proposition, and we all know this. No one could legitimately think this. I am sorry. Nobody, I repeat, nobody could legitimately think that this is a problem in any way.
Saying only healthier looking men should take the role in shopping centres, but Santa is happy in his own skin.
That's all Santa.
I think the image of Santa is a jolly man, and so I think that's just what it is.
Yeah, that guy's exactly right. It is what it is. What? We're going to suddenly have, like, Santa, like, lifting weights? We're going to have Santa Claus, I don't know, doing push-ups? He doesn't have time. He's busy making... Even in the canon of the Santa Claus lore, he doesn't have time for that shit. He's way too busy. He's way too busy preparing presents with all the elves all year. Santa does not have time to be doing push-ups, going for runs, watching his weight. The man works around the clock to deliver presents for your children, all the children in the world, and you want him to watch his weight? Mate, I think Santa should finish up on Christmas Day. He finishes up and he goes home and he eats his brain out because he knows he now has to make billions of toys for next year for the rest of the year. And he's definitely underpaid. Absolutely ridiculous for Santa.
Instead of leaving just milk and cookie, maybe leave out a healthier alternative such as apples.
Is this actually a joke? This is possibly one of the dumb... This guy says he's a health expert. Hey, mate, do you understand how weight gain occurs? It makes no difference if Santa is eating 1 billion cookies around the world or 1 billion slices of apple. It's calories in, calories out. It's not about the food. Okay, maybe there's more calories in a cookie than a slice of apple, but really, if you're eating at 6 billion houses on one night, a cookie from every house or a slice of apple from every... There's too many calories, mate. And him eating apples, it doesn't make a difference. What? You're going to put, like, a protein shake out for... Like, I think this is the dumbest story I've ever seen. You know? Santa Claus... just hear this.
You don't mind Santa being a bit fat?
No, not really. I don't care. That's just how he is.
Thank you. To the wisest person in this story happens to be like a 10-year-old boy who's like, no, I don't care if Santa's fat. 1, because that's just how he is, but 2, because he's a fictional character. So it makes no difference whether he's fat or thin. And the idea of a jolly old grandfather-esque man who brings presents to us every Christmas is quite a delightful and fun thought for a child to have. And it would actually possibly be creepier if he was a skinny, fit old man. So no, Santa should not be skinny. I swear to God, if in 20 years I have kids and Santa's not allowed to be fat anymore, I'll cancel Christmas. There will be no Christmas. Either Santa is fat or there is no Christmas. There's no in between. I don't even want him to lose weight. If I hear on the news next year that Santa's looking slimmer and he's lost 10 kilos and Mrs. Claus is really happy and they've gone on a couple's diet together, even though Mrs. Claus isn't traditionally drawn as fat. Well, really, you don't see much of Mrs. Claus. You really don't. I wonder what she does with her days. Does she help Santa? Anyway, you don't know. But I'm serious. If Santa isn't fat, there is no Christmas. Santa being fat is actually the representation of what Christmas is, which is a day in which you splurge and eat as much food as possible with your family, right? You don't hold back. No part of you on Christmas Day goes, oh, maybe I should watch my intake. No. Christmas Day is the day that you go wild and you eat everything your nonna makes you for dinner. Every single thing. You do not hold back. You have soft drink, you have alcohol, you have desserts, you have fruit, you have coffee, you have every single thing, and you feel like shit after it. And you do that for Santa. That's why he's fat. It's because it makes you feel okay at the end of Christmas when you have eaten a shitload of food and you feel like shit. And you go, well, Santa gets away with it. Why can't I? There you go. Santa needs to be fat.
I wanna fuck you hard on the sink.
Sorry about that. Also, Santa's a fictional character. So, you know, it's like saying, I don't know, Hagrid, he's a bit fat. Maybe he should be skinny. Just saying. Well, Hagrid is a complex individual. And so Santa Claus is a complex individual. You don't know why his eating habits are the way they are. You don't know what goes through Santa's mind and the neural pathways that make him want to eat in excess. You don't know that. You can't judge him. Leave Santa alone. I don't want to hear about this next Christmas. I'm telling you now. And if anyone is putting apples or any other fruit out for Santa, you think he's going all the way around the world in one night using his magic time travel powers to deliver presents to all of the kids, right? And you think he wants to eat apple? Give him a choc chip cookie. Because I'm telling you now, if he sees apple, you're getting coal. I swear to God, if I was Santa and I'm going in and out of every house with my time travel magic powers, you know, and I see an apple, how do we know cookies don't give Santa magic? How do we know that? And if you're giving him apple, you're not replenishing his magic. Don't give Santa an apple. Don't do it. Don't cave. Don't cave to the media pressure. Let Santa be fat. Final story before I start rapping. Avatar 2. Very interesting result from its opening weekend. I got torn a bit to shreds on TikTok for my prediction that Avatar 2 would be a commercial flop. Sorry, not a commercial flop, but it would not be anywhere near as successful as the original Avatar. It won't fail, but I don't think it's going to make as much money as people want it to. Got about, I think, 20,000 views on that post. Yep, 20,000. Lots of comments, lots of people condemning me in the comments, telling me that I'm wrong. Well, let me read you a couple of headlines for the weekend, because I did go and see Avatar 2. I put a review up on YouTube, actually, so go and check that out. I might post it on this feed as well, but here's a couple of headlines from Avatar's first weekend at the box office. From Insider, Avatar 2 fails to live up to Disney box office hope. MovieWeb, could Avatar The Way of Water really be a box office disappointment? Giant Freakin' Robot, Avatar 2's first box office results are in and unexpected. Avatar 2 looks to be financially underperforming at the box office despite its huge budget. Well, what a surprise to everyone who attacked me, especially one guy who actually did a video reply to me, and he was like, some British guy is like, this is the biggest L take I've ever seen. Hey man, interesting. It's premiered to less money than Spider-Man No Way Home, last year's Disney release on opening weekend, and Avengers Endgame. James Cameron made public comments regarding Avatar 2's need to outperform those films in order to make its money back. And it hasn't. It's a great film. No one wants to see it though, because it's way too long. No one cares. Despite Avatar 2's underperforming box office numbers, the visual spectacle does seem to be drawing a crowd as many theaters are sold out of tickets. Okay. There were 27 sessions at my local cinema on Saturday. Do you reckon they're filling 27 sessions? They're not. I'll tell you now. They're absolutely not. There was a post on Reddit that was very upvoted of a guy who was the only person in his cinema seeing Avatar 2. It's a great movie, don't get me wrong, but it's underperforming at the box office. Could have called it. Well, I did call it on my podcast that you're listening to right now. It's actually not a disappointing... like everyone's saying, it's not disappointing for any other movie. It wouldn't be disappointing. But I guess the thing is, like, okay, the budget of this movie, they're saying, was $460 million. But that doesn't include any marketing budget, which you'd think would be overwhelming, right? And most people say that it has to be like, I think, the 5th highest grossing film of all time to actually even break even. Break even, right? If you're the 5th highest grossing movie of all time and you've just broken even, that's not good. A movie that breaks even isn't a success. A movie that makes $10 million, I mean, I guess it's a success, but it's not really. Let's look at Avatar. Let's look at the original Avatar, right? $237 million budget and a $2.9 billion box office, right? So you've made, what's that, like 1,000%? You've made a lot of money off that. But if you have to be the 5th highest grossing film of all time just to break even on your budget, things aren't looking good. And as I called it, it's a great film, but James Cameron, I think, overestimated how successful it would be. So, yeah, that's those are my thoughts. I could be wrong. It could grow over time, but honestly, I'm going to predict that it won't. It's just not going to do as well as they want it to do. Disney will spin it. They will spin it as much as they can to make it seem really good, but, I really don't think it's going to do very well. Okay, coming to the end of the show. And few things I wanted to say. Few thanks. As I've said, this is the biggest year that this show has ever had, and I hope 2023 will be bigger. In fact, it's going to be my mission to try and make it bigger. Listenership up, awareness up, social presence up, views across our short form content and our YouTube channel content up. It's awesome. And I'm super grateful. I'm so excited for 2023. This year this is the 41st episode of season 4. I think that's the lowest amount of episodes that I've ever done in a season. But the reason for that is because I burnt out mid-year, had to take about 2 months off, which I didn't want to do, but I did. I think what I've decided in 2023 is that in the middle of the year, I'm just going to take 2 weeks off. I'm just going to take 2 weeks off so that I can actually just have some time to recoup in the middle of the year, so I don't have to take another 2 months off. So I'm going to schedule some time off for the pod just to have a little bit of a break, a little bit of a mid-year break. Harry Potter and the Boys, my other pod, grew exponentially as well, and that's another very exciting thing. Again, grab your tickets to the live show. And of course, our Patreon output grew a lot. Sitting on 69 Patreons, but would love to see more. There's going to be more on the Patreon next year. We've got the Pat and Mike show over there, which is going really, really well, as well as the TCB Overflow. Really awesome. And I'm really excited about a few new projects that I'm launching in 2023 as well, that I hope you'll support me in as well. I'm at this point where now I've got 2 sort of established projects with 20th Century Boy and Harry Potter and the Boys, that there's room for me to trial different things with different creators that I'm mates with, and just different content, and there might be a new podcast coming, a limited series podcast in 2023, as well as a new video project that I'm thinking of doing. That's more of a passion project. If you want to hear all about those, and here's where I'll just talk to you about the summer planning. If you want to be the first to hear about some of these new projects, head on over to the Patreon. This podcast will return, I believe, on the 19th of January. So the first episode of season 5 will be the 19th of January. Can't wait to speak to you. So what's happening in between that? Well, I'm going to try and post a couple of best ofs for the year to post on this feed, just so you can recap some of the fun things that happened this year. I'm going to pop them on this feed, and I'll do a little back end forward and back announcing of those. So there will be a bit of content on this feed, but if you want new content and topical content, head to the Patreon over summer, patreon.com/Radio Mike. There will be Pat and Mike's Summer Sesh. We've recorded 3 weeks worth of episodes of the Summer Sesh, talking about our favourite New Year's memories, our favourite summer memories, our biggest stuff-ups of all time, our content ideas that never got off the ground, different topics like that and more general chat over on the Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Would love to have you on the Patreon over summer. You know, $12 for a whole year, that's $1 a month, and you get a lot of bonus content. And if you don't want to subscribe to the Patreon or can't be bothered, send me a message and I'll send you a link to just give me $1 on PayPal and I'll send you anything you want to listen to, right? And I'm going to try and make that a more accessible way of contributing to the show financially next year as well, where if I say I'm going to talk about something on the Overflow or Pat and Mike and you're like, oh, I'll hear that, you can just chuck me $1 and I'll send you the MP3 for you to listen to, okay? I really want to grow the Patreon and have some more money coming into the pod so we can do more exciting stuff. But yeah, I'd love your support there. On the 25th of December, there is a Christmas special that me and Pat recorded. That's an improvised comedy Christmas special that's a lot of fun. So really looking forward to putting that out and hope you guys will listen to that on Christmas Day, driving to whatever you've got planned for Christmas Day. And then, yeah, every Thursday you'll get an episode of Pat and Mike's Summer Sesh. So the 29th of December, 5th and 12th of January, before the main podcast comes back. There will also be some bonus content going up on the Harry Potter and the Boys feed over the summer, so make sure you check that out. And other bits and pieces. Okay, so some thank yous for the year as well. Thank you, first of all, to our producer, Pat DeGilio. He says it's pronounced DeGilio, but I don't care. It's Pat DeGilio, who has done a huge job, obviously, picking up the Pat and Mike show, which he's doing such a great job on. And again, I implore you to listen to that. Behind the scenes does so much work. And just generally, Pat lost his dad earlier in the year and he took some time off and he's back, and we're so glad to have him back, and he's just got such an exciting career set out for him. Few other thanks to Zach Bowen, who did the new podcast artwork this year. Thank you so much for that. All of our guests that have appeared on Mike Talks and all the friends of the show who have been on this show. Keelan Brown has put in a lot of kind of behind the scenes, just like advice and consulting on particularly the YouTube end of the podcast, which has been great. And I'm positive I've missed a lot of people, which I apologize for. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. But to you guys for listening to this show and sharing it around and telling your friends and etc. This is still my favorite thing I do every week, especially at the moment. It's awesome. And having you guys contributing, it really does make my day when I get a message from someone going, hey, listen to the pod, thought this. So if you've never contributed and you're anxious about contributing, just do it. Send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love more of that in 2023. So to you guys for listening, to the Patreon supporters, particularly our executive producer tier, who give $20 a month, which is a lot of money and we're really grateful for. Those people are Patrio Whitey, Patrio Danny, and Patrio Zach Bender. It means a hell of a lot that you would contribute $20 a month. And I want to try and credit you guys every ep in 2023 and any executive producer. And to everyone, there are people giving $12 a month. There are people giving $8. There are people giving $4. There are people giving $1. Whatever you can give and whatever this is valued to you. But yeah, it does take a lot of work to put this together. So it does mean a lot to have the Patreon support. To everyone who's messaged, to everyone who's been around this pod, dedications for the year. 2 dedications this year. Earlier in the year, Pat's father passed away, Roy DeGilio. And look, I know that was a really obviously big moment for Pat. So last year I did a dedication for the show. So first of all, I want to dedicate season 4 of this show to Pat's dad, Roy. So thank you, Roy. And then second dedication from my end is for my nonna, who has appeared on this podcast a couple times in the past, who actually passed away on last Thursday. So getting ready for the funeral and everything this week. So I wanted to dedicate this podcast as well to my nonna, Pina Giansiracusa, who was a very encouraging woman of my cheekiness and my sense of humour. An incredible woman who loved her family very dearly. And yeah, I wanted to dedicate season 4 to those two people who are incredible people in for me and for Pat. So yeah, thank you so much, guys, for listening in 2022, sorry. Hopefully you'll come back in 2023. So many highlights featured on the Kyle and Jackie O show, featured in the Wall Street Journal podcast. So many viral moments, so many fun moments. Can't wait to do this all again in 2023 with new topics, new episodes, new games, new segments, new stuff. Mike's big year of live music, Mike's bigger year of footy. So for the last time in 2022, have a happy and whatever your denomination, a very safe Christmas, New Year period. And I'll see you right back here in the exact same spot, January 19th or whatever date I said. And I can't wait to speak to you again. So for the last time, my name's been Radio Mike, and this podcast has been The Inside of My Mind. We'll see you later.